So yeah, Doctor Who may have a bit of a problem, and funnily enough, it's one of its most popular people to have ever worked on it. Those of you who are already disliking this video based just off the title, well, just allow me to explain, okay? So I'm here today to hopefully explain why I think Doctor Who relies too much on David Tennant. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I should think that's kind of obvious, like, this franchise leans way too heavily on this one guy. Given the whole recent, things that have come out, all the announcements have basically come one after the other, it's like rapid-fire announcements that have been coming out, like, what's been up with that? Given all of that that's come up and everyone's like, oh my god, David Tennant's back, Catherine Tate's back, Bernard Cribbins is back, RTD's back, whoever else is back. I'm not saying I'm not excited about it, I am, I want to see where this is going, but I'm sure it'll be good when it does come out, but I'm thinking this kind of starts stepping into a bit of a problem that I've had with this franchise for some time now. I mean, just as an example, sorry, this video is unscripted, so I'm probably going to explain this very badly, and it's probably going to end up being a complete mess, but please bear with me, okay? So we've obviously had the announcement of Ncuti Gatwa playing the 14th Doctor, which I'm quite excited about. I never heard of him at all before the announcement. I don't know anything about him. I'm not familiar with anything he's in, or any of his acting work or anything like that, but I'm excited to see a fresh face on the show, and I think this will be quite interesting. I don't think he started filming anything just yet. It sounds like they're trying to get the 60th anniversary done first, and then they're going to have Ncuti's Doctor come in. I thought Series 14 was going to go out before the 60th, so we'd have a full series with the new Doctor, and then we'd have the big anniversary with like multi-Doctors and stuff, but I don't know, by the sounds of it, it sounds like they're going to do it the other way around, which is a bit disappointing, because that means we probably won't get Series 14 until 2024. That's a whole other thing, but yeah, anyway, my point being, we've had the announcement of Ncuti Gatwa being the new Doctor, like, less than a month ago. It's like 2 or 3 weeks that the news has been out at most, and then we have the announcement that David Tennant and Catherine Tate are coming back, and then more and more people have been announced, and now we basically got like the entire main cast of Series 4 coming back at this rate, and it just really amazes me how quick everyone is focusing on how great and brilliant and like how earth-shatteringly amazing this is going to be, just because they've got all the Series 4 people back, like Tennant and Tate and RTD and all that lot. Again, I'm not saying that it's going to be bad. I'm sure it'll be good with, with all of them involved. And Series 4 is one of, if not possibly the strongest series of New Who, so, nothing bad inherently about that. Yeah, and it is an anniversary special, so they are allowed to be quite fan-wanky with this sort of thing. It's actually kind of a requirement for anniversary specials, in all honesty. But I don't really see anyone being like, oh, where's Ncuti's Doctor? We haven't seen him filming for the 60th yet or anything like that. Everyone's just like, don't care about him, give me David Tennant. I kind of feel like that's the vibe that I'm getting from a lot of the fandom at the moment. I might be completely wrong on that, and I might be just looking in all the wrong places. I don't know, I just feel like whenever David Tennant's brought up in relation to Doctor Who, he just overshadows everything, and it really annoys me. And I'm sorry, I don't think there's really a good way of saying that without sounding like a dick, but that's what I'm trying to say, okay? Now, I like the 10th Doctor and David Tennant as much as the next guy. He was brilliant, he did wonders for the show. There's a reason that he's very popular. There's a reason that he's like the modern version of Tom Baker, for crying out loud. And whenever you mention Doctor Who to someone who is either just a very casual fan, or someone who's not really watched Doctor Who, but they're aware that it's a thing that exists, just ask any person living in England, they'll almost certainly have at least heard of Doctor Who. Just ask anyone, and one of the first things they'll say, if not the first thing that will come to their mind, will probably be David Tennant in the pinstrip suit with the trench coat on. And I think that's kind of a problem, to be honest, that's the first thing that comes into everyone's mind. Sure, there's nothing really governing who or what should be the most iconic thing in the Doctor Who franchise. It really could be anything, but I think the fact that it is David Tennant and that he is so widely accepted as the face of this franchise, even though he didn't come in until 10th incarnation, I don't know, something just doesn't sit quite right with me about that. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well. Totally fine for people to like Tennant and to have him and his era as their favourite in the whole show, but I'm like, I don't know, like I said, I really don't know how to explain this without coming off as being a complete knobhead, but I don't know, maybe I'm just way too into the whole Doctor Who franchise, the entire thing, from classic to New Who and all the in-between stuff with Big Finish and books and things. Maybe I'm just way too far down the Doctor Who wiki rabbit hole or something, and I fanboy over every new bit of information that I uncover from the most obscure corner of Doctor Who lore from like the most obscure piece of media from like the most obscure piece of the wilderness years or something. Maybe I've lost touch with the light-hearted enjoyment of engaging with this series on a casual viewing basis or something. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, I'm fully aware that someone who's only really been watching New Who for like a few years or something and just watches the show the same way that they'd watch any other show, you know, and you know the difference between those kinds of fans and the fans like me that are just like, I don't want to say obsessed, but okay, guilty as charged, I'm way too obsessed with this show for my own good, I'm pretty sure. You know, fans like me that are just way too into the show and just like dive right into it and are actually kind of become quite picky about a lot of aspects of it, I'll admit that. There's a huge difference between those two different kinds of fans, and like, I feel like the more into the show you are, like me, then the more, I don't want to say the more critical you get of it, because I have a very relaxed view of like a lot of things that people generally tend to generate a lot of talking material about. Chibnall era, for example, everyone's kicking up a fuss about it. I'm like, I really don't see what the big deal is here, it's fine. That can be a whole other video of itself if anyone wants to know more about my views on that. But yeah, I don't know, I suppose because, I think because the show was really popular when Tennant was in it, that was like considered the last real golden age of the show, I think. Between 2007 and 2009, I think, was when the show was like massive, basically, and it's not quite rose to that popularity since then, apart from perhaps like the mid-Matt Smith era. I don't know, it got quite big around then as well, didn't it? I don't know, say the Tennant era is basically the most recognisable part of this franchise, at least the more recent fans. So yeah, the Tennant era is the show's highest point, therefore it's the most recognisable. Even to people that have never even watched the show, they will be at least vaguely aware that Tennant is like the most popular Doctor. And that's alright for the more casual viewers or the people that aren't quite as into the show. But then, I don't know, you get people like me who are like die-hard fans of the entirety of Doctor Who's universe. And I don't know, I feel like we have a bit more of a critical eye for these sorts of things. I don't know. Do you get what I mean? Like, if you stick with this franchise long enough and you watch enough of the different eras, then you'll really come to feel like there's a lot more to this than just those three or 4 years that Tennant was in it, basically, and like you'll come to appreciate a lot more of it. Not to say that I don't appreciate Tennant, like I said, but like you know, that there is more to this franchise, okay, if you really look into it. David Tennant is like a good jumping on point, I think, for people who are new to the series. Well, Eccleston and Tennant, but because Eccleston only did one series, people probably have a more lasting impression of Tennant in particular once they get through his stuff. And I think because, you know, RTD's first era, series 1 to 4, was like the whole revival of Doctor Who, the first time it had been on air properly in 16 years, not counting the TV movie, or Dimensions in Time, but we don't talk about that monstrosity. It's like the most obvious jumping on point in the show's entire run on TV, I think, and I think that's probably why the majority of people start there and have this lasting impression of Eccleston, but mostly Tennant. And people are always very nostalgic for the first part of a thing that they end up enjoying, you know? So like, and hell, I started with Tennant. I started watching Doctor Who probably around about the time of Series 3's original broadcast. I must have been about 6, I think. And I think Series 4 was the first ever series of Doctor Who that I actually watched fully as it went out live. Like, I actually chose to sit down and watch it, you know, with my parents every week. Although for me, I didn't really start getting properly into the show till Matt Smith. Specifically Series 6, I think, is when I really clicked and became like a proper Doctor Who fan. I think around that time, definitely. But yeah, I definitely started with Tennant. Like, this isn't coming from someone who doesn't share the same jumping on point as a lot of other people do, because I started where a lot of us started, like a lot of other people that do Doctor Who YouTube, a lot of people that talk about the show online who are below the age of 30 probably. You know, a lot of us started with Eccleston/Tennant, and a lot of us have that big lasting impression of the show, especially from Tennant. And yet I don't seem to conform to this whole hive mind appreciation of him. And I think that's part of the reason why I have this sort of view that they're relying too much on this one actor who played this one incarnation for like 4 or 5 years at most of this show that has a fucking 60-year history almost. Like, that's like, what, less than 2% of this show's entire run that's been put on this massive pedestal, mostly because of this one guy, or not entirely just because of Tennant, but like the whole era in general, which was really well made, I'll admit. But it seems like people are so ready to just disregard everything else the instant Tennant and RTD are brought up, because they're just like, I want series 2 to 4 again. Not saying everyone's like that, but I mean, some of the really extreme cases I've seen online of people just adoring RTD's first era and Tennant in particular. It's like, again, not that there's anything wrong with that. Totally fine to have your own favourite eras of the show and all, but it just really, really overshadows everything else. Like, the whole classic era, the Wilderness years, which is understandable because it's the Wilderness years, but it's still nice when it gets appreciated from time to time. The Eccleston era, there's a reason people say don't skip 9, and yet a lot of people seem to. They just want to go straight to Tennant, and then, I don't know, a lot of people have a bit of a hard time getting into Matt Smith, but they kind of get there in the end. But like, and then not a lot of people seem to have bothered to watch through to Capaldi, and certainly not to Whittaker. God knows what they're going to do when Shooty comes on. Hopefully they'll bring in more fans, but you know, we can only hope, fingers crossed. Maybe I'm talking out of my arse, maybe this is just a load of garbage, but it just annoys me as a more diehard fan of this franchise as a whole, when, I guess, yes, more casual people come in and start with the show and end up just falling in love with Tennant, but then having a hard time really delving into anything else, or at least trying to, and then they're just like, Doctor Who was only good when David Tennant was on. Okay, right, well then how come the show lasted for almost, well, over 40 years before he was even considered to play the Doctor? I don't know, it just really irks me when people disregard the rest of this show in favour of just the Tennant era, and I don't think my problem comes from people having series 2 to 4 plus the Tennant specials as their favourite era of the show. There's nothing wrong with that, like I've said a few times before in this video. Fun drinking game, take a shot every time I say Tennant or David Tennant in this video, because I know it's already been a lot. My main problem comes from the more recent announcements, and now people have been saying for years, especially during the Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall era, that they're like, oh, get rid of this garbage, bring back David Tennant, he'll make it good again, bring back RTD, he'll make it good again, and I guess they got their wish. But is it really going to make it good again? You know, like, is it really going to fix things? Do you really want RTD and David Tennant coming back and taking over again full time, which I'm glad they're not doing? I'm glad this is only going to be for like a special, to be honest, with Tennant anyway, and then RTD takes over with the new Doctor of his. There's few things that Doctor Who shouldn't do, I think, and one of them is they should never recast a previous actor to play a new Doctor full time. Once you play the Doctor for a few years or whatever, and you regenerate, you've had your time, you are that Doctor, that is your Doctor to do what you want with. Totally fine to have novels written about your Doctor, totally fine for you to reappear in occasional one-offs in multi-Doctor stories and stuff, totally fine for you to play that Doctor again in Big Finish, because those stories all take place at various points and various time gaps within your own original Doctor's era. But you shouldn't be bringing back old faces for new bodies of the Doctor. That's one thing I don't want this show to start doing. And thankfully they're not. Thankfully this new Tennant appearance is going to be just a one-off. So thankfully it's not going to be full-time, but the people that are trying to get back to the point I was trying to make like 3 minutes ago by this point after all the rambling, but the people that have been like wishing for RTD and Tennant to come back, really admit to yourselves you don't want them back because you think they can bring the show back up from the decline that it's been steadily having over the last few years, because you think they're going to bring something new and fresh. To be honest, I think you just want series 2 to 4 back, don't you? That might not be the case for everyone, but I think deep down a lot of people just really want series 2 to 3 to be there again, and I'm like, well, just go fucking watch series 2 to 3 if you're that bloody fussed about it. Like, try not to come off as a dick here, but it's really hard when I'm trying to get this point across. For everyone that only really cares about David Tennant in Doctor Who, are you really a Doctor Who fan, or are you just a David Tennant fan? I'm just wondering, because like, I know there's like a whole niche corner of this fan base that is dedicated entirely to just shipping the 10th Doctor and Rose, especially. That's quite annoying. It just really annoys me when it's like, talking about David Tennant as your favourite Doctor, fine. When you put him on a pedestal above every other aspect who have ever existed in this 60-year plus lasting multimedia franchise with the largest and most expansive fictional universe in any work of fiction ever, and you can't change my mind on that, then I think that's where the problems start to set in, because it's like, what do you like about Doctor Who? Oh, I quite like the David Tennant era, series 2 to 4 and the specials. Yeah, he's my favourite Doctor. I really like him. Oh, that's cool. Any other thing you like about it? Well, I don't know. Now you kind of think of it, I guess Eccleston's series is quite good. I liked a bit of Matt Smith. Heard a bit about Classic Who, not really tried it. I don't really know what happened when Capaldi took over because I couldn't be bothered to watch it because he was old and he wasn't a young Doctor, and I didn't find him attractive or anything. Sorry, I don't really know where I'm going with this. Right, the point I'm trying to make is I feel like there's a certain number of people that are only into Doctor Who because they like David Tennant. If you just like David Tennant, don't bother watching Doctor Who because you don't really care about anything that's in it. Just go and look at pictures of David Tennant. Am I going to get a lot of hate for this video? I don't know. What I'm trying to say is, it's fine for you to love Tennant, and it's fine for you to love him and his era and RTD's first, for the first 4 series of New Who and all that. But please don't disregard the existence of the rest of the franchise, and don't be one of those people that's just like, Doctor Who was only good when RTD and David Tennant were in it, and the other, 55 years of this franchise's history that didn't have this Doctor I like and this particular showrunner in are absolute garbage, and anyone who likes those eras are completely wrong about it. Please just at least acknowledge and be aware that there's other things to Doctor Who other than David Tennant's dorky but strangely attractive looking face and RTD's admittedly really good writing ability. It's like someone saying, oh, the A-Team, isn't that the show where Mr. T just goes around in a van and punches and shoots random people? That is like the most oversimplified explanation of what the A-Team is. I feel like that's kind of a similar analogy, shall we say, to what I'm trying to explain here with Doctor Who. And it's the same thing here. It's like, oh, Doctor Who, isn't that's that show where David Tennant and a very young girl snog in a time-travelling telephone box and fight dustbins with guns. Maybe I'm just too far up the Doctor Who universe's own arse to really appreciate the more casual elements. I don't know. Fuck me if I'm wrong. But they've even been shoving Tennant into, if you look over the last few years or so, you'll see Tennant's been worming his way into, everywhere in this series. You've got him meeting past Doctors in Big Finish box sets entirely dedicated to him meeting past Doctors, for God's sake. Nothing wrong with that, that's kind of cool, but when we end up having him paired with 13 constantly in comics and books and a couple fucking video games as well, I feel like it's especially unfair to be pairing the 10th Doctor into media containing the 13th Doctor, because you're putting possibly the most popular Doctor up against what is unfortunately possibly one of the, if not the least popular Doctors at the moment. You understand this? Does anyone understand? Is this video a complete fucking waste of time? I feel like it probably is, to be honest. Let's just hurry up and end it. Like I said, Doctor Who relies too much on David Tennant. He's become too much of an integral part of this franchise to be disregarded, and while it's okay for him to be brought up every now and again and return for multi-Doctor specials and stuff like that, and he can continue doing expanded media as well, that's totally fine, but I don't know, I feel like we kind of dodged a bullet here with RTD coming back and then Tennant and Tate and all that lot coming back. Thankfully, it's only for a special and not full time, because otherwise, well, we might as well just be rebroadcasting series 2, 3 and 4 on the specials otherwise. You might as well not even bother making new Doctor Who at this rate. And I think it's just a fine line between doing what they're actually doing with this one-off special and just outright appeasing all of the Tennant fangirls and just saying, fuck it, delete all of Doctor Who except for any episode featuring David Tennant. I don't know if anyone feels the same way. Maybe I haven't explained this properly in this video because I've been recording for ages and this is a rambling mess and I'm really bad at explaining any thoughts that I've ever had. But I felt like making this video anyway in light of the recent news about filming of the 60th and the cast involved. And yeah, I don't know. If you understood my points in this, then I don't know, leave your thoughts below, feel free to, and leave a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already. Hopefully it'll be a bit more of a light-hearted video next time, and yeah. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you all then. So, goodbye for now, people. Yep, that's dead. Eat me batteries. I'm off to buy batteries. Bye.